afternoon, everyone. I'm Julia Shatillo with the South by Southwest EDU team, and we're all very excited to have you join us for this next featured session. It's been a pleasure working with such an incredible group of individuals this year, and I'm very excited to introduce our next conversation on the importance of supporting student mental health. Joining us this afternoon are Darryl McDaniels, a mental health advocate and author who you all might also know as hip-hop legend and founding member of RUN DMC. And Michael London, founder and CEO of Uwill and a premier EdTech entrepreneur. Darryl and Michael will be led in conversation by Dr. Jill Buban, Vice President and General Manager of EdAssist by Bright Horizons. As a reminder, during the Q&A, please remember to ask questions through the Engage button on the session page in the South by Southwest EDU Go app, and please don't forget to upvote your favorite questions as well. And so without further ado, please join me in welcoming Darryl, Michael, and Jill.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many people, although the lights I have to get used to a little blinding up here. I'm sure Darryl's used to those better than I am. But thank you so much for coming to hear about these important topics. I am so thrilled to be able to moderate this panel with two legends in different areas. We have our hip-hop rock star legend, Darryl McDaniels, and our EdTech entrepreneur legend, Michael London. I'm just Jill Buban, the adult learning education wonk.
Chill, Jill.
Now I have a new name. This is exciting. Anyway, it's really my pleasure to welcome both Darryl and Michael. As our opening guest mentioned, DMC first made his start in the music business in 1981 as 1/3 of the groundbreaking rap group Run DMC. This multi-platinum music group sold over 30 million singles and albums worldwide. That's like mind-blowing. Inducted into the 2009 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and presented with Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 2016. DMC helped transform rap and hip-hop into the most popular music in the world while building a fan base that rivals the biggest acts in rock and roll. I'm like starstruck now talking about you. So the other side of this is that through this and in different transitions in his life, we'd all say DMC had it all: public adulation, the respect of his peers, money, celebrity status. But in some ways, it imploded when he was overwhelmed by such success at a young age and sank into some world of depression, alcoholism, regular thoughts of suicide, which he's going to share with us, and how that relates to the importance of the Uwill product. DMC authored a brutally frank memoir, 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide. I've read it. I highly recommend it for those of you interested in this topic and interested in learning more about DMC's perspective on it. He now travels the world sharing his passion for mental health advocacy and speaks with all audiences with special focus on students, young Black males who are in a position he once was, lost with no guidance and seemingly no place to turn. And he has a lot of other interesting education opportunities through, like comic books, right? And a new children's book. Yeah, so I'm sure he's gonna tell you about that, but so fascinating. So thank you for joining us, Darryl.
Thank you for having me.
And Michael London, I didn't hear a round of applause, so a big round of applause for Michael too.
Thank you.
Mr. London is the founding CEO of Uwill, the leading mental health and wellness solution for colleges and students. He is a recognized thought leader and pioneer within educational technology and entrepreneurship, having created more than $1 billion in company value throughout his career. In 2019, so very recently, he created Uwill as a solution to the defining higher ed challenge of our time. Earlier, in 2013, he had founded Examity, a leader in learning validation and online proctoring. And prior to that, Michael led Bloomberg Institute, an EdTech startup funded by former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg. His earlier successes include the founding of College Coach and EdAssist, both acquired by Bright Horizons Family Solutions. So there's a little connection there. You guys might remember EdAssist. So Michael actually founded the company on that. So it's
just
funny.
a coincidence.
Yeah, funny how these circles come back around. In 2019, Michael was the finalist for the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award and held a position on the Governor's Commission for Digital Education and Lifelong Learning. Michael is currently a trustee at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center and a member of the Behavioral Health Sciences Committee. He is also a trustee at the Rivers School and a member of the advisory board at Babson College, where he graduated with honors, and he also received his MBA from Boston. So also seeing true, and I think this will ring through throughout the session, that both Michael and Darryl have received many accolades throughout their careers, but also give back to their communities and greater societal good. So really excited to talk to you about those experiences. Okay, so let's get on with the questions. Question one here, Darryl, will you tell us how your personal experiences led you to become a mental health advocate?
Oh, yeah, that's easy. In 1993, I was an alcoholic, suicidal, metaphysical, spiritual wreck who found out that he was adopted at age 35. And it didn't end there. Then Jam Master Jay got shot and killed. So actually, I experienced the full range of situations that, come to people that experience any mental health issues. And I think what's important about me is what I want people to realize is that even though I was DMC, the mighty king of rock who told the world to walk this way in their Adidas while telling them how tricky it is, you know what I'm saying? That was a lot. You might think there was a lot of power there, but I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if it was okay to do. So I experienced everything that Michael created Uwill for these students to go through. But really quickly, once I got into the whole depths of the depression in that experience, when I looked back, I realized that those situations, the seeds were planted early in my life. Really quickly, when I got accepted to St. John's University, the first day on St. John's University, I get there, and my best friend, who went to school with me from kindergarten all the way to 12th grade, wasn't there. So we said we're going to go to St. John's together so we can have, the college experience the same way we had it to elementary and high school. Yeah. So I get to the first day and he's not there. I go to the payphone. I call and there was no beepers and no iPhones and none of that. I go to the payphone and I call him up and I'm like, yo, Doug, where you at? It's the first day of school. And he goes, yo, I ain't got no classes with you. I'm going back to bed. So he hangs up the phone. I realized I was all alone. I'm on the campus of the St. John's University. It's a different experience from elementary and high school because nobody helps you. Yeah. So I had this anxiety and panic attack and all these emotions. Yeah. And I didn't know that, even if St. John's had facilities or accommodations for students going through anything, that in that moment, I did the same thing that I did in '93. I didn't know what to do, so I cut school that day. And I went back to the pool hall in my neighborhood and I started drinking. So I'm here as living, breathing proof that you can, with something like Uwill in therapy, you can beat and defeat whatever it is that you're struggling with because I was there.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that, Darryl. Mm-hmm. And Michael, why did you just decide to start Uwill? It's obviously had such an impact already in the past couple of years. So I'd love to hear your story.
Oh, thank you. And I just want to make clear, I'm here to see Darryl too. So this is cool for me. I'm into it. But thank you for the question. As Jill mentioned, I'm a serial entrepreneur within education technology, and I'm a social impact entrepreneur. But I will say, not all social entrepreneurship has the same level of impact, just my opinion. And so I was phasing myself out of my last venture, and I wanted to do something that was more meaningful than anything I'd done before. And so I looked inward. I had been involved with mental health since I was, a late teen. My father passed away. I was my brother's advocate from that time up until last week when I had a call. So I certainly had some level of understanding as to what was going on in the healthcare system, and it wasn't always perfect. I then, thought about the work that I was doing with Beth Israel and how I could learn from some of the experts there. And then finally, I was fortunate enough to know a number of college presidents. And as I asked them in particular, what is it that, what issue is really the greatest for you? Everyone would either say one or two, student mental health. And this was before the pandemic. Yep. And so I just thought it was a perfect fit for me. And we set out to do one thing at first, and now we're doing more. But at first I said, if we could give a student immediate access to a licensed therapist based upon their need and their preferences, we could do that. No one else could do that. So that's really what Uwill was, and it's still that, but now it does some other things too.
That's great, Michael. I think that's an important point that you bring up, and I'd like to emphasize. I oftentimes hear the relationship between the pandemic and mental health issues. And really, I think we all know, and given Darryl's story as well, these issues, whether in K-12 or bring them through to college, have existed for decades, right? And so maybe the pandemic has brought them to light and has surfaced and hopefully will help to eliminate some of the stigma around mental health issues, especially at these, formative stages of life. But I do think, we're all aware that they have been here for a long time, obviously at least a decade-long trend of increasing rates of depression, anxiety, other serious mental health issues.
I wish I had Uwill when I was at St. John's University.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been drinking Old English 40 ounces.
But even that point, Darryl, and this is a little off script of that story of just that first moment on a campus and not realizing the isolation. There's always this buildup to go to college and the excitement around the new experience as opposed to the reality of, I'm not with my peers anymore. I'm on this foreign campus. My teacher's not checking me in at the door. Yeah.
Nobody's helping me. I'm all alone. That's a scary feeling. And fear, unsureness, and anxiety, and just the horror of having to be in a situation that is new, unfamiliar, and uncomfortable creates a lot of emotional, mental feelings.
Absolutely. So I don't know if you can expand on that a little, Darryl, and tell us about what you see kind of the general challenges facing college students.
First of all, there's a lot of pressure to be successful. A lot of pressure, especially when it comes to college students, because that's just a sample. The pressure that's on the students in college is just a sample of the pressure that's on students to succeed in life, period. Okay. And that starts when you're younger, too, and stuff like that. So I could relate to that because in my situation, I only went to school for 2 semesters because the summer prior to me getting into St. John's University, we made a demo, and then the demo got us a record deal. And then when I was in my second semester at St. John's University, Run's brother Russell put the record out, and it became a hit. So I'm just thinking, I'm gonna have a hit record for one summer, and I'll be back in school. And the only reason my mother and father let me go tour that summer is because they said no at first. In the pressure of school, you gotta focus on your education, this and that. So I was firsthand experiencing that pressure that students go through. But the only reason I was able to get away from that is because I said, Ma, here's the deal. Whatever money that I make this summer from this little hit record that I have, I'll use my own money to pay my tuition.
Perfect.
So, they had a little say, okay, you could go. But when I got into the music business, I was doing good because I was feeling good about myself and what I was doing. Once the success came, as opposed to it being, I feel good about this song, I put it out, it's a hit, I get on radio, I get to tour, I get to chart, we get on MTV, and we get money. it went from me just doing that because I was feeling good inside and out about who I was to, you need to get on the radio. You need to have a hit record. You need to be on MTV. You need to make money. And when people who was outside of me was putting that pressure on me, I started to give into it, which is what students do.
Yep.
They don't want to disappoint their mothers and their fathers and everybody, but it only works if you're right in here. So for me, I started to reach for things outside of me to help me cope. I started to reach for Jack Daniels, Jim Beam, and Johnny Walker to assist me on my journey when I found out that they didn't have my best interests at hand. But the pressure that I experienced in my career is parallel to the pressures that these young students experience in college.
Yeah, and I'm sure that story can ring true to so many college students because you are faced with this first-time situation on campus, but not only that, it is easier to reach out externally and go to a sorority or go to a club or whatever the case might be, and
not deal with the emotion.
Yeah, and escape what that emotion is and the true need that, obviously Uwill is bringing to that population. So a bit of a follow-up. I've had some real interesting conversations over the past couple of days here at South by Southwest, and I always think of education as this great equalizer and a way to increase diversity, inequity, inclusion efforts. And some of the conversations I've had here really focusing around mental wellness, mental health in underrepresented populations, with Black students, and I'm wondering how you see, do you feel Black students need more support or different supports because of cultural stigmas in their communities around therapy? I've heard this over the past couple of days,
Yep.
and I'm sure you can be the expert.
For sure. I mean, especially with men in general, it's a big
Right.
problem. Because you're supposed to be a man, you're not supposed to cry, suck it up, and this and that. But if you don't address the feeling or the emotion or the mental state that you're in, you'll never have victory and you won't be able to be successful. One of the biggest problems is that within our culture, destructive, harmful behavior is celebrated. So that's why certain individuals are reluctant to go seek help. If you
Right.
say you're vulnerable, if you say you're weak, it's considered as a form of weakness. So why would you even begin to think that's something possible for you to be successful? And what I mean by that was we celebrate people that, oh, he could drink a six-pack. Oh, cool. But we don't realize there's something wrong if he's drinking 5 six-packs. So a lot of, oh, he smokes the weed. So a lot of the unhealthy behaviors, mental behaviors, is celebrated and saluted in our communities as a sign of power and coolness.
Yeah.
And not being honest, not being able to say, I'm struggling, I'm having a problem, it seemed unacceptable. Stigma exists. Not only because of the stigma that exists with the individual, stigma seems undefeatable and unbeatable because a lot of times individuals are worried about what people will think about them.
Absolutely.
So if we can make it, the saying it's okay not to be okay, but we have to go deeper than that and make it okay to say I'm weak, I need help, I'm vulnerable. We got to turn it around to where that becomes gangster.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And if you say it like that, then it becomes attractive to the individual. So students are reluctant to seek help because they don't realize saying that you're vulnerable, saying that you're weak is actually a form of power.
Yep.
But by doing it in our cultural society, it's like men don't do that, and especially Black men don't do that, and especially, Black men that's in hip hop, they don't do that. But I beg to differ because the thing that happened to me, I realized that when I talk about the struggles that we all go through, it's even more powerful for me when I was talking about the good things that was happening to me. What I mean by that, we celebrate the person that says, I feel like I could take on the world today. Yes, I love him. I feel like $1 million today. Yeah, I love him. But as soon as you say, I feel depressed or I don't feel like living, I feel like giving up, get away from me, weirdo.
Yeah.
So the definitions that we have been putting on people to allow stigma to exist is even enhanced by people's reluctance to be confident enough to speak up and say, I need help. People look at me because I'm the mighty king of rock. You know, king of rock, there is none higher, devastating my controller, my Adidas and all of that. But I found out I was even more stronger when I said, yo, I was in rehab and I just got out of therapy.
Yeah.
And people would go, what, huh? And I would, tell them my story as an alcoholic, suicide, a metaphysical wreck that was about to jump off the roof, that found out he was adopted at age 35 and Jam Master Jay got killed.
Yeah.
And it was like, yo, you went to, now, because it's DMC, one of the coolest things, not just in music, but in the world, speaking like that, all of the fame and celebrity stuff that put me up here to this person is out the door now. Now I'm down here on their level. And 100% of the time, when I, with power, talk about my weakness, two things happen, everybody. They do this. They look around like the CIA is after them, and they go, and they whisper, I've never told anybody this, but me too. Now, if that doesn't happen, stigma exists because sometimes it's not even an individual. The individual knows somebody going through something that's crazy, but they're worried about telling you, because I'm not worried about my daughter home that's the meth addict. I'm worried about what you're going to think about me for having a daughter go through that.
External.
So they would go, same thing, I've never told anybody this, but my daughter, my mother, my wife, or what's the name. So I just realized by me just simply speaking up and say, yo, I'm struggling, opens the door for an individual to have permission to even admit what they're going through. But also, I think the King of Rock thing was just set up for what I was put here to do. It lets them know that it's cool to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're not a weirdo, nothing wrong with you. Matter of fact, it's one of the coolest gangster bout it things that you could possibly do.
So Darryl, so you've talked, obviously you continue to talk to the first and foremost population of Uwill, post-secondary eds, higher ed students, college students, but I heard you mention that you're also asked to talk about your struggles and how you've overcome them and how you've been public about them with younger children as well. And that seems likely to have such an impact on the future of different societies and really higher ed in general. Yeah.
With the college student, a lot of the things that Uwill is helping them with was there in high school.
Yep.
And if it was there in high school, it was there in middle school. And if it was there in middle school, it was there in elementary school. So basically what happened with me, I would go into high schools and speak, and the kids would open up. And most of the questions is about, how do you feel? How did you feel when you found out you was adopted? How did you feel about therapy? How did you feel about rehab? How did you feel about what people was thinking about you going through this? And the same thing in middle school. But even with the little kids, I just go in there. I don't go, hey, kids, I'm the first rapper ever in. I go in there, hey, I'm Darryl, and I talk about my fears. I talk about having anxiety. I talk about I'm 57 years old and I'm still nervous being up here and talking in front of you. And the kids get it, but you do shows all over. I let them know it's okay to get scared. It's okay to be nervous. But then the kids will start asking questions about, how did you feel when you found out you were adopted? How did you feel when the kids were bullying, teasing you? You know what I'm saying? But the beautiful thing about it is this. Here's what we need to understand. Our world is our careers and our family and the people we interact with, as adults. For the college students, it's their families, the college plays. For the high school kids, it's their high schools and families. For the little kids, it's exactly the same way for us as adults. But their world is their homes, their backyards, their streets, their neighborhoods, their schoolyards, and their classrooms. And in those places is anxiety, fear, and confusion. And a lot of times, an individual, whether young or old, especially with the college students, sometimes waiting a day to talk about what's going through is too late. Sometimes waiting 3 days of being put on a list if these individuals could have instant access to address whatever it is that they're going through, they will be okay.
Yeah.
You will be okay. I didn't mean to say that. But that's how I relate to the kids. When I do a Q&A with the kindergarten and 5th grade, it's all about feelings and fear and anxiety, everything we go through as adults.
And what a monumental impact that I'm sure that your talks are going to have as we see those children progress through and hopefully go to college.
Yeah, their attitudes change. They become more open. They want to speak up more. And, the parents love it if the kids could come home. Because the kids, my suicidal thoughts was, I don't want to live no more. I can't do it for whatever reasons there. People around me in my business, people that were just wrong.
Yeah.
I was worried. I was putting myself in unhealthy situations, point period. So the same way DMC was like, I don't want to rap no more and I want to kill myself. And the world was looking at me like I'm crazy because I say, man, you know Steven Tyler. You get free Adidas. How could you want to kill yourself? It's the same thing when this college student says, I don't want to go to school. I want to give up. This doesn't make no sense. And it's the same way the little kids are. I hate school. They don't hate school. They hate the feeling that they're getting, man. And somebody needs to address those emotions.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Michael, I keep thinking about DMC's story around arriving at St. John, and even if you knew where there were solutions, you wouldn't have known how to find them, right? I think, I'm thinking about that, like I have no idea how I would have located that on a campus. They don't put that in the college tour, right? I don't know, maybe they do today, I don't know. So Michael, when you started thinking, the concept around Uwill, what did campus counseling look like to you? And how do you think Uwill can contribute to that, or maybe transform what that looks like and how we approach it on campuses?
So when we started to look at what existed, I have to say, I was really impressed. I thought, well, they've been doing it the same way for a very long time. Typically, it was a house, and there were a number of mental health professionals who worked there, and students could come in when they had need. And it hadn't changed much. So some people were down on it, but I felt very differently. I saw licensed professionals who were there, who were balancing their counseling with other programming that they were doing. They would be in a meeting, they would get a call, they would jump. I was very impressed, and I remain very impressed by what they're doing. So when we took this on, we wanted to be the group that acknowledged the fact that they were doing great things, and we feel that way right now. I think that's why everything we do is a complement to what they're doing on that campus, and that's something that we're continuing with. So we are a way for them to get added capacity, right? There's too many students, so we can help. We are an emergency solution, right? Because every student deserves to feel safe. And that's not something that they were doing. They sometimes had traditional programming around mind and body, whether it be meditation, mindfulness, yoga, lifestyle, even work life, but that was on campus. There's a lot of online learners. So clearly they needed to have that complement for those students that were never going to come on campus. And so we worked hard to build a solution that would work in conjunction with the current solution, as well as to include collaboration tools so that that group could always be well informed of what we were doing. And so far, I believe in a large part, that's why we're working with 100 schools or so right now and bringing on a new one about every single week. It's because we recognize the good work that they're doing, and we just want to be part of it.
Yeah, you bring up, I'm going off script a little, sorry, Michael.
I'm not him, you know. Be very careful with me.
So in my recent former life, I was actually the head of digital and online learning at a university, and we focused on bringing online first to graduate students. And when looking at the research around student support services, even going back 14, 15 years, one of the top request was to have mental health solutions for graduate students. So I started thinking about the online population. And then at that university too, every end of semester survey that was done, that was one of the top 3 highest requests. And I started thinking, like, how important is this not only to expand to the graduate student population, but also in thinking about online? How could we reach our students around the country, and what type of solution was there? So it was really interesting to me. I had been at a traditional really large institution visiting and hearing the stories of students that even have the courage to go get the services they need at that small house, let's say, but then go home, from Ohio to New Jersey for the summer, and they can't continue working with that therapist. So Michael, I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit. That was just transformative for us to be able to offer the services online and at a distance, and I don't know that everyone knows it's common that can't happen when summer comes.
It really can't happen, and I sometimes combine graduate, online, and to be more specific, not always near campus, right? They're not necessarily taking an online course at whatever college they're taking it at because they live next to the college. So they can't really use those services as good as they are that are on campus. So if you take that population further, I would say, a lot of times adults in particular, they have more stuff in their way than anybody else.
Absolutely.
It's hard. They have balancing. They have their child and their mom being sick and everything, and they have a lot going on. And so I think that is, there's a reason that's an emerging area within our business. Mm-hmm. Not all students are 18 to 21. They are all ages, and we want to be able to help them to deal with whatever needs that they have.
Great. Thank you. So I have to do some kind of crystal balling. That's just who I am. If anyone, I just did this in my other session, but I'm just curious, there's so much, clearly, Darryl, you're making a huge impact with younger students, and we hope to see that ripple effect as moves through to higher ed. And Michael, just in the short time of Uwill, you just said over 100 colleges. I mean, massive impact in all types of student populations. So Darryl, I'm curious, what do you hope will be the impact of your mental health advocacy 10 years from now?
The main thing is stigma will be eradicated. Once that happens, it makes everybody's victory guaranteed. Once we get rid of stigma. In order to do that, what Uwill is doing, it's technology is supposed to be assistant, like you said. Yeah. The colleges was doing it, but technology enables us to be better. Absolutely. Of getting to a solution and resolution. So I'm one of the greatest rappers in the history of hip hop, whether you believe it or not. And I have two of my most famous rhymes is stigma will be eradicated because Uwill allows us to do this. If you remove guilt and shame, you remove the pain. Let me say that again. If you remove guilt and shame about whatever your situation is, whatever will make you reluctant, whatever will make you would think therapy don't work, whatever would make you think that you're a weirdo, if you remove the guilt and shame, you remove the pain. Now it becomes easy, because now it's not painful to take a step that's going to help you. And the other thing is, stigma needs to get out of here, because people need to realize if you don't admit how you feel, whether good or bad, you never heal. It has to become okay to have dialogue and conversation and normalize the same way that we say, I feel like $1 million today. You could say, I feel like crap today, and nobody will think something's wrong with you. It has to get to the point where, I'll put it like this. If it's freezing in here, I can't tell you, Jill, don't be cold, right?
Right.
But what would I do? I would turn up the heat. I'll give you a jacket. If it's hot in here, Michael, and you know it's hot, you feel hot, you really feel hot. I can't say, don't feel hot, Michael. But what I would do, I'd give you a cool drink and turn on the AC. So the minute a student has any anxiety, fear, low self-esteem, anorexia, addiction or whatever, it has to get to a point where it's okay to say that's what you're going through. And that's what Uwill allows individuals to do, especially students, because I let them know, you will feel scared. You will feel nervous. You will feel anxious. You will feel like giving up. You will feel like not being healed. You will feel like killing yourself because of the situations and circumstances. But what we're trying to say is, automatically, as soon as that happens, you will be able to talk to somebody. Yeah. You will be able to get help, and you will be able to defeat and beat whatever it is that you're struggling against. So my hope is that stigma is not a word that is associated with mental health anymore, because of the perceptions that say just because you feel a certain way, there's something wrong with you. Because I find out, being DMC, and I travel all over the world, there's something wrong with 100% of all of us, and a lot of us are afraid to say so. So our truth, the student's truth, is all of our truths.
Absolutely. You know, I have to say, you guys all see me up here with this boot on my leg. It'd be fine if I said to you, I really don't, my ankle really hurts, I don't feel well. But if I actually just said, I'm having a bad day up here on stage, yeah, it's a whole different message, right? It's not acceptable. So I really love that, and I love how you're sharing that and changing kind of the future. Michael, what do you know, your crystal ball 10 years from now? What does a college campus look like? No, I'm just kidding.
I'll try.
How should colleges be approaching mental health? How do you see that changing over the next 10 years?
It's a hard question. And you know, what I would say is this. You know, we're really proud that 1 in 10 students now are using some type of mental health assistance on a campus. And that is a big accomplishment. But here's the problem. It should be 1 in 3. And so how do you get there? And actually, Dee said it especially well. I mean, it really is to get rid of the stigma. Yeah. I mean, that is absolutely huge. I think also, you know, you look at kids going to college, and now I'm back to traditional students. You know, you take a college is so excited to get that A student with a 1,600 on their SATs. If that person has mental illness, they're not getting through. So I think as long, you know, as soon as a college is able to take that link between mental health and success and take that one step further, I would expect that you're going to see better results. And that's probably communication around it's okay to get therapy. It's communication around what is actually offered. It's embracing both the solution that they have on campus as well as embracing third parties like a Uwill. And I think that will evolve the situation quite well. And finally, and I mentioned this briefly before, they really will in 10 years have a solution that is equally good on campus and in an online community, because plenty of students are going to prefer that online community. And it's understandable that that's not the way colleges do it, but it is very logical that a student that's on their phone, and that's the way they want to do it. You know, it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something to embrace. And I think that as soon as that happens, maybe 10 years is about the right time, I think that you are going to see a very healthy campus, and you're going to see more and more people getting help and more people graduating and achieving success, both in whatever they want to do and also personal mental success, which is absolutely huge.
So you mentioned something, Michael, around online community. And of course, I think back to, for those of you who are in online education or know anything, like how important that community is for online or coaching or getting together with peers and networking. Am I reading into this wrong? But I heard this kind of online community. Are you thinking communities of peers through mental wellness?
I think so. I think that when I look at Uwill and where we're going, it's really a community that offers everything mental health online in one place. And it starts from the simple fact, which we haven't really talked a lot about, you have to go online because essentially you need counselors who are licensed in all 50 states. Absolutely. You can't do that from a single campus. It would be impossible. So you need to be able to do that. And I think the only practical way to get that done is through more of an online community. There are some very good, and I don't know names off the top of my head, but there are some very good peer-to-peer resources right now that exist. And those are also a good complement to what's being done on the campus. And I think it's just putting it all together in a program and working together to achieve excellence. And we've made great strides, and I would expect it'll continue.
That's great. Yeah, I'm curious something else for either of you. I would open up this question too, but Michael, something you mentioned was the student who has the 1,600 on the SATs and probably plays 3 sports, is in his 16 clubs, and just overworked, maybe because of the external pressures from parents or what society's driving them, but to get into that college, to do this. And it seems like once that student achieves that dream or that goal of going to that college, they have this independence. They have less structure. They have more time to maybe think inwardly. I'm just curious if you think there's a connection to all these external pressures on to be perfect as a high school student and then being independent in college.
Oh yeah, I got an answer for that one. 1993, RUN DMC had the same thing. This is trivia for y'all too. People say RUN DMC and Walk This Way brought Aerosmith back, which is true, and Steven Tyler and Joe Perry and the band, they admit that. So they did. So what I'm trying to say, in a community of people, in a culture and everything, we have so much in common besides just in the reason why we're in a room together, work together, go to school together. So long story short, in 1993, RUN DMC had a comeback. If y'all know hip hop, Pete Rock from Pete Rock and CL Smooth produced the title track on our new album called Down with the King. And Down with the King brought RUN DMC back. Prior to that, we were pioneers and legends, but we wasn't participating. We was kind of what you called over, but people still respected. Because of you, hip-hop exists. Because of you, all the deals. Because of you, all this opportunity. So in 1993, we put Down with the King out. It put us back on the chart. It put us back on MTV. It put us back on the road. We opening up for Limp Bizkit and Marilyn Manson and ZZ Top. We opening up for Tupac and Biggie and everything. So like you said, we're back at the height of success that we created for the people after us, because in the 80s, we was getting the 80s paydays. Now we're getting the same payday that we allowed for the people to get now. So as soon as that happened, I sat down, and it's just to answer your question, I sat there and I was like, okay, first to go gold, first to go platinum, first on the cover Rolling Stone, first on MTV, first on American Bandstand, first with the sneaker deals, first with the big tours. I went through all my firsts and all my accomplishments.
Talk about pressure.
And then it went personal. That was that. I achieved all of that. Then it went, okay, my mother's name is Banner, my father's name is Byford, I got my brother named Alfred. And if y'all remember my rhyme, son of Byford, brother of Al, Banner's my mother and Run's my pal. It's McDaniels, not McDonald's. These rhymes are Darryl's, those burgers are Ronald's. I ran down my family tree, my mother, my father, my brother, and me. I looked at my personal life, how, blessed I was. I looked at all my accomplishments, and then it was a void. Yeah. It was a void there. And I said, to answer your question, I said, Jill, there's gotta be something more to life than this. Yeah. I'm doing hip hop, and I done achieved what Mick Jagger did, but there's something that's not fulfilling. And I didn't know what the mystery was. And then that's when the suicidal thoughts became. There's got to be something more to my identity and my personal. And I thought about everything. And that's when people started thinking I'm crazy, because now I'm this great guy who achieved things beyond the dreams. How in the world can I be depressed? So they became the enemy. I started to isolate myself. So now I'm at the point where I'm saying, I don't want to live this. I don't want to live with these feelings anymore. So that was the thing that allowed me to find out that I was adopted and go through all of those emotions. And it wasn't until I was able to go to rehab to discover the therapy thing that would have answered the question of what the void was in the first place. So to answer your question, yes, these kids are under tremendous pressure to get that degree, to succeed, to become famous and productive and stuff like that. And even that sometimes isn't enough to secure a secure foundation of mental health. Sometimes why do you think so many, look at Anthony Bourdain. Mm-hmm. Why do you think so many successful people end up suicide and injury? Because what you have doesn't mean anything. than what you are and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Do you want to add anything, Michael?
To that, I don't know.
I know.
You're good. I was a fan in '93. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah,
Even
we're doing
earlier.
trivia. That's trivia.
Even earlier, '80s.
I just had 2 incidences in my life that I could relate. When I made it to college, I wish I had something like a Uwill. And then when I'm thinking about it, I wish when I was sitting there, my video, Down with the King gets on MTV, and Eazy-E flies out from Cal. We didn't pay for Eazy-E to come to the video. He saw that RUN DMC was doing something, everybody was so he comes there. I wish that the day that that happened, I would have had some place to go. And here's what's crazy too. In 1990, I got diagnosed with acute pancreatitis. I forgot to tell you.
Oh
I was diagnosed with acute pancreatitis in 1990, so I had to stop drinking. When I found out that I was adopted and I was going through all of these emotions, instead of having an outlet or a place where I could go to get help, I went back and started drinking again, which was self-medicating. I didn't know where to go or what to do, and the way we started out this conversation, I didn't know if it was cool for me to go do that.
Absolutely.
So I experienced the whole circumference and scenario of all the issues that these students go through. I experienced that in my student life and in my professional life. So if Uwill is there to help them with their students, when they do become successful, the journalists and the scientists and the chemists and the producers and the writers and directors, because Uwill there was for them when they needed it,
Absolutely.
they will be victorious and appreciate that success.
Cool.
Yeah. So I could clearly, I'm sure you all look so engaged, I could clearly talk to Michael and Darryl for hours, but we are coming to time, and we wanted to take a few of your questions from the Slido app. So if any of you can still do the power pushes to get questions coming to the top. I'll take the top 3 to 5 that are now, but if you go in there now and want to give a couple power plays, they might, your choice might rise to the top. So, you know, Darryl, to your point, how can we get students to better understand that failure is okay and chasing perfection can be poisonous? Oh, I love that. Perfection is poisonous, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because the students is worried about so much success, and the idea if I don't succeed, I'm worthless, I'm not worthy, and something's wrong with me if I don't succeed. What we don't tell them is that everybody who is successful went through some hard times and some crazy times to get there. Everybody who is successful has failed. But the perception, the only information that they get is you go into business and you win, like Elon Musk. That's not true. So they're looking at, I was with Jesse Jackson a couple of years ago, and he said, here's a perfect example. Jesse Jackson said, MTV Cribs is cool to show you those cribs that these successful people are, but he said the bad thing about it, it doesn't show you process, it shows you the result. So if you try something and you don't win, and if you don't get the contract, if you don't get the record deal or something like that, that failure makes it seem like there's something wrong with you. Yeah. And if that's going to affect you out here, imagine what it's doing on the inside. And to sum it up with, people, y'all got to understand something. Walking this way to tell the world that it's tricky in my Adidas wasn't an overnight success. Number one, we got turned down by every major label that we went to for a record deal. And you want to know why this is funny? Because at the time, you know, hip-hop is supposed to be all braggadocio and hard and masculine and thugged out. When Run's Brother took it to all the major labels, we ended up on an independent label that was doing house and disco music. They had enough confidence to take a chance in us. But the reason why they said the majors didn't want to sign us because they thought there was something wrong with me. They said, there's no way the hip-hop culture in these streets in America want to hear a young man talking about chicken and collard greens, St. John's University, and his eyeglasses. But those things that I had against me were the very things that empowered me to this. So we got turned down by every label. In my first year in the business, Jill, I worked for free. Wasn't it? But we wasn't getting no money our first year. It was showing up and saying, just give us 20 minutes to get on stage. So once we teach these students, fail 100 times, because that failure will give you the strength and fortitude and experience to appreciate it when you do get successful.
That failing forward. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely. Sorry, I'm like getting used to this app too. I thought I had what I was going to say, so give me a minute here. So I'm going to cue this one up to you, Michael. How can we provide, there are actually two I was putting together here. How can we provide or find similar mental health support for educators? And also there was a previous one asking, is Uwill only for college students, or do you offer that in K-12 as well?
So anyway, good questions, thank you. I would say, as far as us only being for the students, it's not the case. On the other hand, most of the schools that we are working with offer us to the students and not the faculty. And I was trying to figure out why that was, and it's a sad reality that in colleges, human resources handles things for faculty, and student affairs handles things for students.
Right.
So unless there's some level of communication, many schools are bringing us on just for the students. But we very much understand that faculty is having challenges too, and we absolutely can help. I actually would make the request that you should please mention it to human resources, because it's an easy ad and we would love to do it, and we believe we could actually make a difference there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. We have time, I think, for just a couple more questions. I'm trying to take some of the top ones so everyone knows.
Can I add something to this for you, Michael?
Yeah.
Before 2 weeks ago, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, I spoke at Anna Marie College
in Worcester.
in how you pronounce it?
Worcester?
Worcester. I always go Worcester or Worcestershire.
Everyone does.
Worcestershire sauce.
Worcester.
All right. But I spoke at Anna Maria College in Worcester because they had 7 suicides with the students. So there's a professor there who's like in the hip hop. He knows Chuck D, he knows the Beastie Boys, the EPMD and stuff like that. He was very big on exposing my books to the students. So I went there and I just spoke, and he said the beautiful thing about it was the audience, probably 60% of the audience was kids actually going through it. And the other 40% was kids that knew a brother or sister or another student that was going through stuff. And it was amazing, Michael, when I finished, they had their notepads out. What's this Uwill thing? Like they became curious. They started opening up. And I told you this when I saw you just recently. The faculty, what we got to realize is the people on the faculty was once those kids, the same kids that are now in there. But here's the beautiful thing. The professor, he had a meeting with the college, and he's pushing Uwill. They heard it. They're coming to meet with you. And also the college itself is like, yo, this is crazy. They're going to introduce the idea of Uwill to 11 other schools.
Phenomenal.
Because they're realizing they need the assistance. But the beautiful thing was, and I'm talking about these are kids going through it that don't want to hear, don't kill yourself and do this stuff. They sitting there the whole time like this. Like it's bull. But they heard truths. And they heard stuff that, like, I think what's special with me, they don't see DMC. They see themselves.
Absolutely.
And that's the key. I'm not special. I'm just like you.
Yeah, and that actually reflects on another point you made earlier, Darryl, and I think it's really, in order for all of us to have an impact, I mean, you've done so much touring and talking about these topics, but it's everybody here too that is in somehow a leader, or kids look up to them, or being able to say, I'm having a bad day, this is hard, I failed, or whatever it is, because someone's looking up to all of us, right? And that we can have a massive impact. Yeah.
So they can know it's normal. Oh,
yeah.
Wow, for sure.
Absolutely, to normalize. Okay, we have one for you, Darryl. Can you talk about the anxieties with later albums where you maybe didn't agree with the vision? How is that similar for teacher anxiety who with recent pressures in education? Can you make any parallel?
Oh, for sure. When I went to rehab and then I discovered therapy, I was diagnosed with suppressed emotions. And it's kind of go back to the other question about once you get to success. A lot of the things that I was going through with my mental health situations and my thoughts and my anxiety was I made a lot of records with RUN DMC that I didn't necessarily agree with. In the first place, people get, what do you mean? We loved everything. I said, no, you might have liked and loved everything. But there were certain records where it was basically the time when the mental health issues started to express themselves inside and out. We did this album called Back from Hell. And on Back from Hell, if you go listen to it, it was our worst album. It flopped and everything. But the reason why was we cursed more on this album. We wasn't the ones shooting the guns, but we was talking about guns because gangster rap had got so big. Yeah. So now we gotta make this record this way. We need to do this to get on radio. We need to do this to fit in with everybody else. So I'm changing who I am to please other people and please the manager and please the label, and that was totally destroying me. But instead of being in the meeting saying, no, I'm not doing that, I don't want to do that, let's find a compromise, instead of speaking about it, I just went and drowned my emotions, suppressed my emotions with the alcohol. So to answer your question, for me personally, you know, when Jam Master Jay, I love him, he's brilliant, he's creative, but when he had me rapping over New Jack Swing music doing the Running Man, I should have known right or wrong there's something wrong with my mental. But everything that I'm talking about, I'm not saying it was wrong for Jay or Run to do, or for the label to do. It was wrong for me to do it. Right. And I was in that situation where I compromised my mental health to satisfy others. When I was in therapy, my therapist said, D, there's something called selfishness that is your right. And I'm not talking about, I'm not sharing my money and deal with you, I'm not sharing my food with you. The selfishness is, I need to take care of me first so that my business and my relationships, family, friends, and career is okay.
Yeah. There's an interesting question here, and I think it may be our last question for the day. Many times faculty anxiety is projected onto their students. Have you thought about faculty mental health and your vision for a healthier campus? And we talked a little bit about this, but I also think about, you know, not relating too much to I think this is happening worldwide, right? Parents reflect stress onto their kids, and what does that do to them? So I think this idea of the projected anxiety or projected issues, you know, how have we thought about that? Michael, have you thought about any of this for a healthier campus? It's kind of a tough question.
I have a bit, and I have to tell you, from this conversation today and some of these questions, I think I have to think more about it, because it is very real. It's something that I recognize, especially with faculty and staff and administration. You know, there's a lot of need there, and I probably so far have accepted somewhat that schools are driving what they decide to offer. I think that what I'm going to do now, in particular, is I'm going to push that a little bit more, because it really does feel like something that's in great need, and it's something that I'd be really proud to be part of. And you're right, if I want to have an online community of mental health assistance and wellness support, we need everybody on the campus because it matters. And so that's something we're going to think a lot more about, because it's a good advice from you all.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us this afternoon. It's really been a pleasure to see so many faces in the crowd and so many engaged. I mean, we had so many questions, so thank you for that. Darryl, we can't thank you enough to open up and share with this audience of educators, K-12 higher ed. Yeah, this is really special. And Michael, thank you not only for joining us today, but for bringing Uwill to audiences. I hope everyone hears about this, but to higher ed, we're in such need of it, and our students really are. So the work you two are doing together is just phenomenal.
Thanks, Bob.